Roots of the Science podcast with your girl, Anne with an E.
Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Roots of the Science podcast with your girl, Anne with an E. It's been a tough time in the world recently with all of the many injustices that as Black people we've been facing that have been magnified. So last week we decided to take a pause in our regular programming to take some time to reflect on all of these issues. And in the result, we realized why this show in particular is so important, because as Black people in science, especially in STEM, we ourselves face so many injustices. So it is important to highlight the work that Africans in STEM are doing, and it makes me so proud to be part of the cause. As a result, our new guest today is Mariam Garelnabi. She's of Ugandan and Sudanese heritage and moved to the UK, where she's still based after high school to pursue her tertiary education. In this episode, we learn how from an early age she was interested in science and was encouraged by her teachers. She has since completed her PhD at the University of Birmingham in the United Kingdom last year and is now a postdoctoral research. The work focuses on testing new compounds from cannabis plants to be used as immunotherapies towards a variety of immune disorders. We also discuss how some of the stigma associated with the use of cannabis in medicinal methods. Lastly, I opened the discussion on how one survives and navigates being an international student in a foreign country. Do stay tuned.
Hi, Mariam, and welcome to the show.
Hi, Anne. Thanks for having me on your podcast.
I'm so excited. So we're just going to get into it so that we can get to know more about yourself. But briefly, can you just tell us a bit about yourself, where you're from, where you are currently based, and your age?
Well, I'm 31 years old. I'm currently based in the UK, originally from Uganda and Sudan. I was raised in Uganda mostly, and then came to the UK for university straight after my high school. So I went and did my BSc in human genetics at University of Leeds, and then my master's in molecular biotechnology in Birmingham, and that's where I also did my PhD that I completed about just over a year ago. Yeah, so that's my educational background so far.
Oh, okay.
And since I finished my PhD, I've been working as a postdoc at University of Roehampton.
Thank you for giving us like a brief background about your educational studies and how you came about. So wait, you said that you came to the UK straight out of high school. So does this mean that you moved with your whole entire family, or you moved on your own?
No, I moved on my own. So I came here as an international student.
All right, that makes sense. That makes sense. And how was it coming from, Africa and then into the UK's, into the diaspora, as everybody likes to call it?
Oh wow, that has been. It still is quite an experience. I mean, over the years, I've gotten used to living here, but initially there's for pretty much everyone I know, there's that initial culture shock when you first move to a new country, new city, new way of life. It's interesting and it's hard. So, for instance, even though I already spoke English before I came to the UK, I found it difficult, understanding people with different accents from around the UK.
Yeah, that's true. I can imagine. I can imagine. Did you ever have where people might have said, did you have an accent where people were like, oh, you sound like you're not from here? Was that something that happened to you?
Yeah, they did a lot. It still happens now, but not so much anymore. But when I initially came, I was told I sounded quite Americanized. So I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. yeah. So that was interesting. I didn't think I did, but yeah. But they took
so you didn't have the typical. You didn't have the typical inverted commas African accent. And I'm saying this in inverted commas because I don't even know what that means. But I do code switch, I must say. I code switch in and out of my Ugandan accent. So I wouldn't say I'm in accent right now. I don't know. It's something I can't really control anymore, but it also depends on, who I'm talking to, my surroundings, and yeah, I think a lot of people do that, code switching. Yeah, no, I can relate to that. That's actually very true, where people say you don't sound, because I'm from Malawi, But I suppose for me, what happens is that like my accent is sometimes heard when I speak my native tongue. But anyway, just to take it back, it's quite interesting that you do that code switching. I didn't even know it had a term, so I just learned something new right now. So anyway, can you just, was there, like, paint us a picture? You explained to us some of your educational background, but was there a particular instance or a person that actually got you involved into the science field, or was it something that you yourself always knew that you wanted to do when you were younger?
I think it's a combination of both, because from an early age, I was always interested in science, how things work, particularly biology. And, as I grew older and progressed through school, it was also my teachers at school that, would encourage and inspire me, to learn more about the science. I think I've always naturally been a geek, so I liked reading a lot. And I think that interest grew as I got through my A levels or higher levels of high school. And that's when I decided that initially I thought, okay, maybe I want to study medicine. But I was really in love with biology. And when I found out that I could go and study genetics as a course, that was it for me. That decision was very easy to make. So off I went.
Oh, that's great. So you said that you went in to study genetics. This was for your undergrad?
Yes, it was.
Okay, so you continued with genetics all the way through until your PhD?
Well, not really. I wouldn't say my career path has been straightforward, so to speak, but then you find that with a lot of people, especially in the sciences field, because there's so many interdisciplinary sciences that, it's easy, once you have a basis in something, you can go and learn about something else. So, genetics was, a huge part, partly molecular biology. So going into my master's, I was still interested in molecular biology, but then I started to grow more interested and have, a love for microbiology. So that was my master's project. And so in culmination, my PhD kind of joined both my loves of molecular biology and microbiology. So yeah, that answers your question.
That's very... Yeah, it does. That's very interesting. And you're right. I think sometimes you might think you want to do this one thing, then as you are furthering your studies and you're pursuing one particular area of research, due to that interdisciplinary component, you kind of discover like, oh snap, okay, this is interesting. Maybe I should try that. And I think that's a beautiful thing about science. Don't you agree?
Yeah.
That's a very beautiful thing. So you are currently a postdoc researcher. You know, although we touched briefly on this, that, you know, you didn't always know which particular field of study of science that you wanted to do. But I just wanted to ask you, did you always want to be fully in the academic field, like in academia, or was it just a matter of, you know, current circumstance that you just decided to progress, that, okay, maybe I can't get a job now, so there's an opportunity to study, so you know, let me do it. Like, it wasn't, or was it really part of the whole bigger picture? Like, you saw yourself like, this is what I'd want to do at this stage.
I would say yes. This was something I saw from, you know, probably around the time of my master's is when I kind of made the decision, you know, I wanted to go the academic route, pursue a PhD, and, you know, I went to research. So this is where, you know, you kind of have this bigger picture, but you kind of don't really know the building blocks towards it yet, or you have a vague idea. So, you know, you reach your goal, but kind of not sure how, if that makes sense. But it's worked out. It's worked out how I wanted it to.
Oh, at least it's worked out. I think at least it's worked out, and you are where you envisioned yourself being, regardless of anything that might have happened. So
I know, it's still a few more steps, many steps to take. I mean, I'm not there yet, so to speak. That's what I'm trying to say. I think I'm still on those building blocks towards the greater dream, let's say.
All right. So your project currently involves identifying and testing new compounds from the cannabis plant that could potentially be used as immunotherapies towards a variety of immune disorders. Can you tell us a bit more about this, and why is it so important?
Well, nowadays, you know, with the way, you know, the world is changing and, you know, changing the legalization of cannabis and medicinal cannabis, you know, people are starting to learn more and more about the medicinal and potential medicinal uses of the cannabis plant. So generally, what's widely known is two main compounds from the cannabis plant, which are THC and CBD. I won't bore you with the long scientific names. It's a mouthful. However, not a lot of people know that there's actually more than 80 compounds produced by this plant that could potentially have, have potential as immunotherapies. So that's the work we do. I can't tell you more. Unfortunately, it's classified. But that's just a snippet, into my current job. But, these drugs could potentially be used, whatever we discover could potentially be used maybe to, for something greater. So I contribute to the research. Like, there's many other scientists around the world who are doing similar things. So, yeah.
Oh, that's very interesting that you say that's classified. It just gives, I'm sure it gives like your work that factor. You're working.
No, it's not like if I tell you I have to kill you kind of thing. It's not.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Oh, it's like how you said that It's because other people are working on that. So of course, it's still something new. It's something novel, but that's pretty exciting. And I can't wait to see what you guys find out in terms of your research, you and the other people working on this. So as much as, like you said, the cannabis plant has got all of these things, these benefits, apologies, but I just wanted to clear the smoke on cannabis, like the pun intended there. Medical cannabis has quickly become the most socially disruptive phenomenon in this new millennium, and it's showing no signs of slowing down. And in fact, I read that by 2026, which is about 6 years from now, it's estimated that the global medical cannabis market will reach about $148 billion. However, there's so much misinformation and miseducation, towards cannabis as a whole. There's so much stigma behind it about, why it's potentially bad for you. Why do you think this is so? And what do you think needs to happen to change this?
Well, personally, I think there's big political barriers that I can't speak to personally. However, I feel that as more information about the medicinal properties of the plant, conducted by, that come out from actual research, as more and more of that knowledge comes out, I think there will be less of the stigma around medicinal cannabis. I think the more, even with time, we're already seeing it happening. I mean, people aren't as shocked to hear about it as, they would have been, I don't know, in the past. So with time, I think it's been decriminalized in South Africa now. Has it?
Yes, it has.
Yes, and I think it's been legalized in places like Canada, different states in America, in different parts of the world as well. There's a growing acceptance of it for medicinal use. So I believe with time and as people just get to know more and more about it and spread the information about it, the real, the research, the data, then hopefully that stigma should subside.
And I think that just drives home the point of why the research that you and all the other scientists working on cannabis are doing is so important. Because I think, as people, we always have that tendency that we fear something that is unknown, Exactly. So you only fear it because you don't know about it. So the more that we find out, the more that we find out, and like you said, that there's probably 80 other compounds that is actually, we only know 2. That's crazy.
Mainly, well, in the general public, there's so many others that are currently being researched, but generally speaking, it's those 2 that are the highlighted ones.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
No, I can't wait
but
until
it's all interesting. Yeah, and I'm also enthusiastic about it, and I look forward to.
Yeah, definitely. So you did mention, you highlighted that there are some countries where cannabis has been legalized, and I'm just going to bring it back to Africa, and there are other African countries which are actually tapping into the lucrative marijuana or cannabis, as it's officially called, they've relaxed laws. So, for example, Uganda, Lesotho, Zimbabwe, South Africa, like you mentioned, Zambia, and even Malawi, which happened earlier this year in February. So this is good. It tells us that, there is that acceptance that is happening, which shows so much prospect. But I just want to bring it back home to you. So, when people hear, okay, I'm working on cannabis plant, how do your friends and family take it? Like, do they think, oh my word, you are the, I don't mean this in in an offensive way, but, like they call, like, are you the plug,
what does the plug mean?
Oh, you don't? Okay.
Familiar with that term.
Like you okay, my bad. Let me teach you. Okay, maybe it's a South African term. It's like you are the one, the like, the hookup. Is that does that make sense?
Oh yeah. I get
like
you.
The guy.
And my immediate response is that, guys, I'm not working in a plantation. Okay, I work in a lab. Okay, I receive purified compounds that cannot be even used for human consumption. So, no, not possible.
So that takes away all of that.
I'm purely a lab rat. Sorry.
I'm saying that takes away all of that notion, just because they think cannabis, they think you're working with the real stuff.
But then that, I mean, if that's ever the response, I mean, that's what I say. But generally, a lot of people just respond with intrigue. They want to know more about it. About is it true it does this? Is it true it does that? And I guess all I can answer them is, what's currently out there in the research and what's known. So, and there's still a lot to find out still. So, it's really difficult, I guess, to explain in layman terms. But there's a lot that's known, but then there's still a lot there's a lot more that is yet to be known.
Interesting. So okay. So I just hope I've taught you a new word and you can use it, in a sense.
Okay. Yes. I am not a plug.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my word, that's so funny. I just quickly that's really, really cool. Anyway, this has been a really exciting chat, just hearing about everything that you're talking about. But in life, it's not always a very straight and narrow road, in terms of research. No. So many of us can relate that, we have setbacks. Have you ever experienced a setback or failure during this journey? And if you don't mind telling us a bit in one instance, and how did you overcome that?
There's been quite a few. But one of the setbacks I faced maybe earlier on in my transition to the UK, like I mentioned earlier when we were talking about code switch, or when I first came, it was difficult for me to sometimes understand people's accents. So going to uni, I had trouble understanding the lecturers' accents, which was quite hard. Because, I'm trying to read the slides, understand what they're saying, and have to go home and, read up again, because I barely, caught most of it. So, but then that's something I overcame with time and, just getting used to people's different accents and, it got better. So it got easier to, to acclimate, so to speak, because it's easier to understand people. But initially, that inability, it actually, really just made me feel even more so like a foreigner, like, I'm in this country and I'm trying to do my best, but I need to get a grip. So that was one of the things that I came across earlier on. Other things were like things like constantly having to apply for visas, for different visas.
Oh yes.
For my education, there's different things, and trying to get funding for my PhD, which I did get eventually, but then that did take a while, So those are some of the things that have come up along like the way, but it's I guess over time you just get through one and then the next and then the next.
You've touched on two very important things as a foreigner in another country. The language barrier is something that's not spoken about too much. For you, I know you said it's accent, but I can imagine how if it was somebody in a completely different country where it's a completely different language, which is not English.
Yes.
That must be so hard for you to try and to adapt to a very new place. And exactly like you said, you came by yourself, which is a case for I think a lot of other African students who go to these places. Who go to these places all on their own. So it's a very underrated struggle that not many people take into consideration. And don't even get me started on the visas. That is another headache. I think everybody can relate to that. And it's something that most people who are from that land that you are in, they don't really understand the struggle that you actually have to get to be there and to study. So it's a privilege actually to do that. And thank you so much for sharing. I'm sure there's so many of us who can relate on this matter. But just to close it up, just to close up this chat, I just want to ask you, in conjunction with this last question and all these points that you made, what advice would you give to somebody who's interested in studying science as a whole or going overseas to go and study, and also somebody who might be interested in getting into your field and looking at, for example, cannabis plant? What advice would you give to somebody on that?
Well, I would say it's hard to get into it, but then get to know, once you've identified something you're interested in working on, if you want to pursue research of a certain kind, start to familiarize yourself with other people who are working in that same field you're interested in. And things like LinkedIn are a very powerful tool, because if you reached out to people, most of the time, like almost 9 times out of 10, that person will be happy to help you out and guide you, whether you need, advice on things like fixing your CV or advice on maybe preparing yourself, gaining, if you need to gain experience in that field or learn a few things before you go towards that field, then those are the kind of people who will help you figure that out along the way. So all in all, just be bold and reach out to people, because most people want to help you along your way. And yeah.
That's very solid advice. You're right. I think sometimes the fear of reaching out can be so limiting. People who you usually aspire to have gone through whatever most of the time that you're going through.
Exactly. Yeah. And they can also help you and help you avoid make the mistakes they made along the way. They can give you maybe even possibly a shortcut. So you never know. Okay?
True, that's very true. So reach out. Thank you so much for sharing your story, and it's been so amazing talking to you, and I really appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much for having me, and you're doing great work highlighting all these other amazing scientists. So well done.
Oh, thank you so much. And to everybody else who's listening, thank you so much for tuning into another episode of Through to the Science podcast with your girl Anne with an E. Until next time, goodbye.